Joining me now to respond to this news from D.C., we have with us State Representative Anthony Sabatini. How are you doing, sir?
It's a great day to be an American.
Yes, it is. It's a great day. I wanted to get you to you're also a lawyer as well, so I wanted to get you to just give us your take on what happened in this decision as it has been announced today.
Well, very easy. I don't think it takes a lawyer to break it down. It's it was actually one of the most simple of all landmark decisions in the history of the court. Roe v. Wade, obviously 50 years ago, was one of the worst decisions ever made. There's no precedent in the law. They just came up with a new right called the privacy right and applied it to abortion and said that all state laws restricting abortion and protecting the lives of unborn children were null and void. It's been modified slightly since then, but today the court did what it should have done, many decades ago. It struck down Roe v. Wade. And it basically, the reasoning of Dobbs, the decision today, is that the reasoning of Roe 50 years ago makes no sense. It's not found in the Constitution. There's no legal argument for it. It was made up by radical leftist nutjob judges, some who were appointed by rhino Republicans in a 7-2 decision back in 1973 to basically just make up the law. So they corrected the record. They struck down Roe, and now state governments are in charge of choosing what laws they want in regards to abortion. So radical leftist insane states like California are going to be passing pro-death laws, pro-abortion laws, and states like Alabama, Missouri, Kentucky, and hopefully Florida will outright abolish abortion because abortion is murder. And so that's where we're at.
And it seems like there's a new fault line between those who are pro-humanity and those who are nihilists and Malthusians, whether it's their desire to normalize getting children to get cancer-causing hormone therapies at a very, very young age, if possible, whether it's telling people not to breed and have children, or if it's this another front where they want to legalize and normalize being able to abort a child even after birth. Whatever it is, there's an anti-human current that runs through the establishment's worldview. What is that? Where is that coming from?
Well, so I would say yes, absolutely. There's a dehumanization. There's an anti-life perspective and movement in politics that's bigger than it's ever been, and you see it everywhere. But let's not forget that Roe v. Wade was decided 50 years ago, and these abortions have been very popular for the last 50 years. The other dividing line in politics today is those who believe in self-government and democracy and those who don't, which is hilarious because if you talk to those on the left, they always say, we're sticking up for democracy. We're sticking up for self-government. The truth of the matter is Roe v. Wade represents the biggest legal and unelected bureaucratic infringement on democracy in the history of the United States. It's the court saying, you 50 states don't get to choose what laws you want in regards to abortion. Today, in the Dobbs decision, the Supreme Court corrected that, believed in federalism and believed in democracy and said, no, we're going to let people choose what laws they want to self-govern with. So that's the other dividing line. Yes, there's this anti-human sort of death element in politics, but that's been around for a while. It's just picking up speed. This newer dividing line between those who believe in self-government, those who believe that they should make their own laws to govern themselves, and those who believe courts should do it is, I think, even more pernicious. And it's good to see that we have a 6-3 decision in court going in the other direction on that.
So, Anthony Sabatini, Mike Pence has called for a national ban on abortion. Do you believe that's something that you would push for if elected to U.S. Congress, or do you think this is something that should be dealt with at the state level? As a state representative, you worked in the Florida legislature. Where would you handle this issue?
So actually, I agree usually on Mike Pence with very little because he's a very uncourageous and sort of spineless, old Bush-era Republican. I don't find myself agreeing with him much. But believe it or not, I actually do believe on a federal ban on abortion. And the only reason I do believe in a federal ban on abortion is because this is an issue that would clearly, in the old judicial sense, implicate interstate commerce, because what's going to happen is eventually red states like Alabama, Kentucky, Missouri, Texas, where abortion's been outlawed, giant woke corporations are just going to shuttle these people out of the states, kill the children of their own employees, and then put them back into the states. So you're going to eventually, even though we don't like, we keep framing this thing as a state issue. It is a state issue, but there will be, but remember, federal statutes should play a role too. Aside from the court, what we didn't have is a federal law on abortion, and now we have state laws. We had Supreme Court ridiculous, non-legal opinions about whether abortion should be dealt with at the state level, and an absence of federal treatment. And now we just have state treatment. But the truth is, eventually, the federal government will have to get involved, because it is murder, and they're going to start skirting state laws in a way to promote abortion. And that's just a fact of the matter, whether it be the actual travel costs and getting these people moved out to other states. Disney today said, woke Disney World right here in Orlando said they're going to be paying to take their employees who are underpaid and get no benefits. They're going to put them on a bus, send them out of state, abort their children, and then bring them back to work the lemonade stands in their parks. So, as long as that's happening in states that are pro-life, there's going to eventually have to be a federal treatment.
Yeah, Disney's starting to sound more and more like the angriest place on earth, hasn't it? Dear goodness gracious and mercy.
Well, it's the most woke place on earth for sure.
Anthony Sabatini, what do you think about? Can you tell us a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling on the Second Amendment issue? What does that mean for us?
Sure. I'm reading through the opinion now. It's about a 100-page decision. New York State Rifle versus Bruell, a landmark decision, was probably the most important Supreme Court decision in the last few years until today with this Dobbs decision. But in some ways equally important in the sense of it's a pro-life decision. It's about protecting the lives of everyday Americans. It's a decision that struck down a test in New York. There was a test saying you can't even apply for a concealed weapons permit unless you can commit and show and prove, and the burden was on you as an individual citizen to prove that you needed this concealed weapons permit license because of some unnecessary danger that you were facing. The Supreme Court said, no, that's the wrong test. The Second Amendment is actually much more robust than that. The burden shouldn't be on individual citizens to go before government and try to prove that they need a concealed weapons permit before they can protect themselves. And so by striking down that New York test, they struck down all the concealed weapons permit programs around the country that are not shall issue, basically ones that says you can just go and get a free concealed weapons permit, or maybe not free, but very easily attainable and open to the public at large. And so of course, that's a very important decision, but at the heart of that is this increasing new respect by our justices to actually enshrine the Second Amendment as a fundamental right, like the First Amendment, and not treat it as some subsidiary right or something that doesn't deserve full protection. And so it's in many ways the single most important Second Amendment decision in the history of the country.